I just finished a brutal night saving lives when my phone pinged. Motion alert. At 4 a.m., the last thing I expected was trouble at home. But there she was, our entitled HOA Karen, breaking into my house. Too bad she didn't know my retired police K9 was waiting. My name's Jake, 45 years old, and I've been a paramedic for 15 years. I've pulled kids from mangled wrecks at dawn, carried overdose victims back from the edge, and seen more grief than most people ever should. After my divorce, I bought a quiet ranch-style home in Meadowbrook Estates, a Phoenix suburb where every house looked identical, stucco and tile roofs stretching for miles. I thought the HOA would be harmless. Some retirees complaining about weeds, maybe a warning letter if your trash can stayed out too long. But then I met Brenda, our HOA president. She was the type of woman who strutted through the neighborhood like she owned it. Platinum blonde hair, designer heels clicking on the pavement, perfume cloud trailing behind her like toxic gas. She wasn't keeping order. She was hunting. And if you crossed her, you'd pay. Fines for lawn decorations, violations for flag displays, threats over mailbox colors. Neighbors whispered about her like she was some suburban dictator. I tried to stay under her radar, but in a neighborhood like this, sooner or later you collide with power. And Brenda loved reminding everyone she was the one holding it. The first time she came after me, it was over security cameras. 3 break-ins had hit our street that summer, so I installed 4 modest cameras: front door, back door, garage, and driveway. Nothing flashy, just basic protection. 2 weeks later, I got a violation notice in the mail. Unauthorized exterior modification. A $150 fine. I nearly laughed. The HOA's own covenant allowed reasonable security measures. I thought it had to be some clerical error. But when I went to the next board meeting to contest it, Brenda didn't even look at me. She just smirked, tapped her gavel and said, "Fine stands. No discussion. No hearing." Meeting adjourned in under a minute. It wasn't just me. Luis, the Navy veteran next door, got fined because his wheelchair ramp wasn't up to community design standards. Sam, a Marine whose wife had passed away, was cited for an improper flag display. Even Pete across the street, retired Air Force, got slapped with a violation for his garden gnome. It didn't take long to see the pattern. Brenda wasn't enforcing rules. She was targeting people. Veterans, widows, anyone who might push back. She smiled while she did it, like every fine was fuel for her ego. And when you realize you're living under someone's dictatorship, you start looking for allies. Or in my case, a very different kind of partner. That's when Rex came into my life. He was a retired German Shepherd from the police K9 program, 85 pounds of muscle, discipline, and intelligence. His amber eyes seemed to read people's intentions before they even moved. From the first day I brought him home, Rex filled the house with a calm I hadn't felt in years. The jingling of his collar was like having a partner again. He didn't just guard the property, he guarded my sanity. But Brenda saw him as another target. Within 48 hours, I found a notice taped to my front door: dangerous animal complaint. Immediate removal required. I nearly choked. Rex, dangerous? The dog was lying on my porch like a sphinx, calmly watching hummingbirds at the feeder. It became clear. Brenda wasn't just power-hungry. She was obsessed. She wanted control, and anyone who didn't bow to her version of suburban perfection was going to get crushed. But she didn't understand Rex. He wasn't a pet. He was a soldier who had fought criminals his whole life. And when you try to trespass on his territory, that's a fight you don't walk away from. The night it happened, I was on a brutal 24-hour shift, 3 overdoses, 2 cardiac arrests, and a car wreck that left me covered in diesel and blood. By the time I clocked out, I could barely keep my eyes open. Meanwhile, Brenda was making her move. At 4 a.m., my phone pinged with a motion alert. The footage made my blood run cold. There she was, in her designer tracksuit, creeping into my backyard with a crowbar. With her was Carl, a greasy-looking guy I'd later learn was her boyfriend, and a convicted burglar. The cameras caught everything. Brenda jiggling my back door handle, Carl trying the windows, both of them whispering like cartoon villains. And then, the sound that would haunt her nightmares. Rex, First came the low, bone-deep growl. Then the thunder of claws on tile as he launched himself toward the intruders. Brenda froze like a deer in headlights. The next second, Rex slammed against the door with a roar so fierce Carl dropped his crowbar and stumbled backward. Brenda shrieked, tripping over her own heels as she scrambled across my patio. Carl cursed, dragging her toward the gate. They ran into the night, Rex's snarls echoing after them. What they didn't know. Every second was recorded. Every whisper, every desperate escape. All preserved in crystal-clear HD. When I got home and replayed the footage, I didn't just see a burglary attempt. I saw the unraveling of Brenda's mask. And I knew this was no longer just an HOA dispute. This was war. I took the footage to my neighbor Dolores, a retired paralegal with more fight in her than half the lawyers I'd met. She took one look and shook her head. "This isn't HOA business," she said. "This is criminal." Together we dug deeper, and what we found made my stomach twist. Brenda had been staging fake violations, dumping garbage on lawns, scattering dead plants, even bribing inspectors to fine residents into submission. Carl wasn't just her boyfriend. He was her enforcer, casing homes under the guise of safety inspections and preparing them for burglary. Even worse, we discovered Brenda had been running the HOA board illegally. Half the members had quit months ago. Every emergency resolution she'd been waving around, completely fabricated. And the cherry on top, her real estate license had expired 6 months earlier. She was pretending to be an authority she didn't even legally hold. This wasn't just harassment. It was organized theft. But Brenda made one critical mistake. She thought we'd stay silent. She underestimated veterans, first responders, and a community that had been bullied for too long. With Rex at my side, we began building our case. And Brenda was about to learn what happens when the hunted finally decide to hunt back. Over the next week, our neighborhood turned into mission control. We documented every violation, every staged photo, every threat Brenda made. Dolores filed legal paperwork. Luis gathered witness statements. Pete, the retired Air Force investigator, dug into Carl's criminal record and unearthed a goldmine of dirt. Meanwhile, Rex became our guardian angel. He patrolled the windows, silent and watchful. His presence enough to make Karen's daily Lexus drive-bys feel like her own countdown to doom. We submitted everything to the city, the police, and even the state attorney's office. Fraud, extortion, harassment. The list of charges was longer than Brenda's manicured nails. But the best part? Every new violation she staged only added fuel to the fire. She thought she was burying us under fines. In reality, she was building her own legal coffin. We didn't just want to stop her. We wanted to end her reign for good. And soon, the moment of reckoning arrived. One night, Carl returned alone. This time, he wasn't just casing the house. He was carrying burglary tools, preparing for the real deal. What he didn't know was that federal agents, already tipped off by Pete's contacts, were watching. The moment he forced my back gate open, floodlights ignited the yard. "Police! Hands up!" Carl froze, tools in hand. Seconds later, Brenda pulled up in her Lexus, only to be met with officers surrounding her vehicle. The look on her face was priceless. Pure shock as her empire collapsed in an instant. Both were arrested on the spot. Charges ranged from burglary and fraud to mail tampering and harassment under color of law. The following weekend, our neighborhood held the largest HOA meeting in its history. Over 200 residents packed into the community center. News cameras rolled as Dolores dropped the evidence on the table like a bomb. Every fraudulent fine, every staged violation, every scam exposed. When the final vote came, the result was unanimous. Brenda and Carl permanently banned. New leadership elected. All bogus fines canceled. And Rex? He sat calmly beside me as the crowd cheered. The hero who'd saved the neighborhood with nothing more than loyalty and a growl. Life in Meadowbrook Estates changed overnight. Instead of fear, neighbors shared barbecues, stories, and support. Veterans were honored, not harassed. Families felt safe again. Rex became our unofficial mascot, Kids read him stories after school, and veterans visited when the nights got heavy. Brenda got prison time. Carl got a permanent record. And we got our community back. The lesson? Document everything. Stand with your neighbors. And never underestimate the power of a good dog. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from a courtroom. Sometimes it comes with 4 paws, sharp teeth, and a heart that refuses to quit.